Hello friends, consistently disappoints people who have extremely low expectations here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of Dota Alchemy, in which we're going to be taking a look at a replay of a hero that I genuinely think is one of the most MMR winning heroes of the current patch, and I think it's extremely underrated. So this hero is Axe, of course, and if we're going to be taking a look at an Axe replay, we may as well be looking at the best Axe on the planet, and that is OG Ceb, aka fucking mad. So let's get into it. Let's take a look at what he's doing on Axe in the current patch. So as for starting items, our boy goes for 2 Stout Shields. This gives you a 75% chance to block 20 damage from incoming attacks, which means you're basically getting hit by creeps for almost nothing. And then with the 5.2 base regen that Axe has, this is an incredibly efficient setup to have both of these Stout Shields. And then he goes for a Tango and 1 Healing Salve. Presumably, if he was considering just cutting the creep wave, or if he didn't think that there was much to harass him while he was cutting the creep wave, he would go for a Tango. Instead of a Salve, he'd go for an extra Tango, because it does give you more regen. It's just that a lot of the time, you have to survive that first creep wave in order to get level 2, maybe even a second creep wave to get level 2 if the enemy team denies you. So you need that Healing Salve to kind of bring you quickly from 20% HP to 70, 80% HP, so that way you can get to level 2, and then at that point, you can harass whoever is fucking with you while you're cutting the creep wave with Battle Hunger. Like, this hero gets much stronger once he has a few levels, so sometimes you basically just need that burst regen, and it looks like that's what he perceives in this game, considering he's against an Ursa plus Undying, which are 2 very hard counters to Axe in the laning phase. So Ceb's initial take on this laning phase is that he thinks that he can lane against Ursa plus Undying, which are 2 very hard counters with the Battle Hunger, which makes sense. This hero has received the 10 movement speed buff, which obviously benefits from that 12% movement speed from the Battle Hunger. So it's very easy to kind of run around and harass people down with the Battle Hunger and lane. And I do really like Ceb's take on the laning phase, that if you can lane with Battle Hunger and just make space for your team and kind of shut the enemy laner down, you may as well try. Even though it's an extremely hard counter, he wants to try to make space for his team. So he tries to lane, he goes for Quelling Blade, so that way he can get the initial last hits on the first creep wave without having the counter helix available. And you could see that the trading actually isn't going that bad, but then the Chaos Knight shows up, making this a tri-lane, and Ceb feeds. So now, at this point, it's gotten to the point where it's clear that they can't just run into this lane and out-trade their opponents, because they've given them some levels. And, if they couldn't do it initially when it was even, they're not going to do it when they've given 2 kills away. So what does Ceb do? He runs at this creep wave, right-clicks the Ursa to drag the creeps to him so it pushes out with the counter helix, and then he skills second point in counter helix. I imagine if they were destroying this lane, that he'd go second point in Battle Hunger to keep harassing. But he goes second point in Counter Helix, and he just goes to cut the creep wave. And then he goes to jungle, cut the creep wave, jungle, cut the creep wave, jungle, and the Undying runs at him. He doesn't really care because the Undying's not getting experience back here, and he is. And this is one of the greatest things about Axe, is that you can cut the creep wave if the lane is looking rough, which a lot of the time in Dota, your lane goes bad because you just don't have a winning matchup, or your lane goes bad because you kind of mess something up. So this is really nice about this hero, is that you're basically guaranteed to get farm as long as you do exactly this, which is cut the wave and drag it to a creep camp. And you can see that there's a lot of fighting happening behind this tower, but let's look at the tower. Taking damage, entire wave of creeps missed by the Radiant team for a kill. XP-wise, that's not worth it at this point. Gold-wise, 163 gold, that's actually still not worth it. So this is why cutting the creep wave is so powerful, but I do like the fact that Ceb's take on the laning phase is that if you can lane and dominate with Battle Hunger, you should try that first. So to summarize, basically from what we just saw to this point, everything was going wrong. Ceb was dying a lot. He was kind of hard farming. His team was feeding a bit. He put a Veil of Discord in his quick buy, because one of the big builds people are doing on Axe right now is you max Battle Hunger and you run around fighting with the Veil of Discord, and that's a really nice bridge to get to your Blink Dagger, where you don't really want to rush a Blink, because if you rush a Blink, you don't even have the damage to kill people with the Blink, and you don't really need the initiation. People are still farming. It's still kind of the end of the laning stage. So you want some item that makes you tanky, makes you effective. Vanguard has been that answer in the past for a long time, but Veil of Discord seems to be what people are going right now. So because the game was going so poorly, though, instead, Ceb just got the casual Helm of Iron Will, which gives him a little bit of tankiness for cutting creep waves and for farming. And then he recognizes that he needs to go for a Blink Dagger. He is farming slowly. His team is having a really rough game. They need to start fighting soon. And if he finishes the Veil of Discord, he's going to lose the game before he gets the Blink. And the Blink is what's going to open up the game to potentially allow them to start winning fights. So it's really cool to see that he recognized that and made that decision of like, okay, this game is going south. Here's where I need to fix this. I feel like that's a pretty high-level decision. So with the Blink Dagger, he walks in, throws some Battle Hunger, use the Blink, and sets up a pretty nice fight here. Ursa has to use the ultimate. They waste the Tombstone, so they back out. And he kind of dips out for a second there. That's a really important thing, in my opinion, on how to play Axe, is that you're kind of in and out. You want to Blink call maybe a couple of times in a team fight. You want the fight to be surrounding other people rather than you until you get your call off. So he leaves the fight with the help of the movement speed from the Battle Hunger, and then he blinks in and hits this 4-man call. Once Ceb picks up his Blink Dagger, he stops playing this hero like an absolute madman that, just runs at people and starts fights by throwing Battle Hunger on them and running around naked and getting in their face. And instead, he spends a lot of time essentially just standing around, standing out of vision, jungling, doing stuff that usually would be perceived as relatively useless. And, people complain about hitting jungle creeps. But this is one of the few situations where he should be hitting jungle creeps, because he's the counter initiator. He's the guy who might start fights. He's the guy who might end fights. So you can see that he's literally just standing here. He's letting his Crystal Maiden get CS. And the reason for that is because the moment he shows, they can just go on him and there's no counter initiation. So his build on Axe is that he goes for the kind of Veil quick buy thing where, he doesn't have the ability to really contribute with Veil anymore. So he just goes for the Blink. After that, he goes for Crimson Guard. After that, he goes for BKB. So I think the most important takeaway from this game, at least considering what I see a lot of people building on Axe, is the fact that he's not building a Blade Mail. There are very good heroes on the enemy team to kill with a Blade Mail. Ursa, Shadow Fiend, Legion Commander, even Chaos Knight to some degree can kill himself on a Blade Mail. You can clear the illusions with the Blade Mail. But there are so many hyper damage heroes in Dota right now that you don't really need a Blade Mail in order to do damage. Troll should be doing damage. Enchantress should be doing damage. Crystal Maiden, even with the ultimate, should be doing damage. They do not lack damage. However, there's a lot of physical damage on the enemy team, so a Crimson Guard is incredibly effective, and there are a lot of spells on the enemy team that he wants to avoid getting disabled by. So the BKB is very important. He is considering his main job is to just get the initiations, survive, so he can hit another counter initiation, just like this, although his blink got canceled, unfortunately. And the BKB allows him to do that. And then the Crimson Guard, of course, is going to protect his team from the ridiculous amounts of physical damage that the enemy team has. And his team is definitely worth protecting. They have huge, squishy damage dealers on their team in the Enchantress and the Troll, and even to some degree the Crystal Maiden. So I do want to make one quick mention here, because I know I said earlier that Ceb basically never shows on Axe, but I guess an addendum to that is that he does occasionally show once it's already known that he's in a position. So they just took a fight bot, so the enemy team knows that he's here already, and Ceb is still a player who values creep waves extremely highly. So what he'll do is he'll show somewhere by taking a fight, taking a gank, and then he'll push a creep wave and immediately go into the jungle. So he'll push one creep wave because creep waves are important, but if he were to push any more than that, I mean, the momentum's already going towards the enemy tower. You've already done the job. The enemy team needs to defend that. So after that, he just goes and jungles, so he can keep the value of not showing on the map and having the enemy team be scared, but he's still getting farm, and then the momentum is going towards the enemy base. So basically he has this rotation where he is taking a fight, pushes one creep wave, jungles, goes to his team, fights, pushes one creep wave, jungles, goes to his team, and that is essentially the mid game for him. You can see that he's fighting. I imagine he's probably going to push one creep wave or maybe hit the tower after this, and then go jungle, and then fight with his team again. His final item build this game is Mjolnir, Assault Cuirass, Crimson Guard, Black King Bar, Blink Dagger, Power Treads, and with the 40 attack speed talent, this guy is a legit right clicker at this point. And then he has the attacking procs counter helix as well. He might actually be doing more damage with this build than you would do with the Blade Mail. I'm not 100% sure on what the math is on this build, but I think this is a really interesting take on new acts where you kind of play in this way where you're this tanky frontlining guy for the first 10 to 20 minutes, then you are like a counter initiator / initiator, then in the late game you're legitimately kind of a right clicker. So the biggest takeaways for me from this game are the fact that the way that Ceb plays Axe in team fights is that he abuses the battle hunger after he blinks in and calls somebody. He abuses the battle hunger to kind of play the perimeter of the fight so he can run out, get his blink so that it's not canceled, and then blink back in and get a nice call on somebody. And he did that like 4 times in these long engagements, and every single time he hit a call, it was completely devastating for the enemy team. And then also, I think it's really important the way that he plays the mid game. The laning stage is really easy on Axe because you just cut the creep wave and get mega farmed, and the way that you play the mid game is essentially what determines if you're a good Axe player or not. And the way that he plays the mid game is this rotation of not showing and then taking a fight, pushing a lane, jungling. It's this very efficient rotation where he's getting a lot done on the map, but without like giving away too much information. Anyway, that's it for this video. I do appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in another video.